to Spirit Coffee Talk. I'm Ginette Byro, and with me is Lisa Richmond, Elyse Catherine, and we are happy to have Tania Leanne here. We are the 4 mediums and channelers of Avalon Spirit, and we're excited to have Tania here because we're going to talk about all things mediumship, including medical mediumship, plus the energies at play, plus, there's a lot that we can talk about in it. So we're really excited to have her. I do want to say we're happy to have Lisa back. Lisa's been away for a little bit. Her connection is a little bit, it's pretty good. It's not too bad, but just if there's any glitches, just hang in there with us. But we've tested it. We think we're pretty good to go. So anyways, welcome everyone, and welcome Tania. Nice to have you.
Thank you. When you said that, I thought, I'm like, what? Her connection to spirit? And then her connection to spirit, it's okay. It sounded funny. I knew you meant the internet, but anyway, I just thought it sounded funny.
I feel like we need to start off with like a joke about 4 mediums walk into a Zoom room. Go from there.
Right? It's true, especially Zoom during Mercury retrograde. That's really fun.
I want to talk about glitches.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm in the middle of nowhere, literally the middle of nowhere. So
in a white room.
I kind of go in and out of communication.
Yeah, exactly.
Literally.
So Tania, tell us a little bit about your specialty. I mean, you do mediumship, loved ones and all that, but just tell us a little bit tell everybody who's watching about what you do.
So as you know, first I'm a medium. That was the first sort of ability that came forward. But I also have practiced and learned with spirit, giving me information basically about what's going on for somebody medically. So spirit gives me the information of what's happening. And we were just talking about this before, kind of spiritually. So if somebody's suffering because they're not connecting to their authenticity, or the sort of the emotional energetic body into the physical body. So yeah, and I'm a pretty straightforward, blunt, like no BS, logical kind of person. And I find that my information kind of comes that way. Sometimes there's a little bit of weeding through because there'll be a lot going on with someone's, all the different sort of areas of the body. And when I say that, I mean like energetic, spiritual, etc. But I pretty much get to like the root of what's going on. And it's interesting because I'll get the root and they'll say, but like this part doesn't make sense. I'm like, I know, but you have to deal with the root because they're not letting me see anything else until this one thing is corrected. I can see that once that corrects, it's going to correct a bunch of other things. So yeah, that's the best way I can explain it. It's just medical information, and it's not very pretty when I give it. Sometimes I'm, with experience and the more I do it, the more I kind of will get like, I'll understand something to mean, heart, something, but I don't get medical terms. That's not true. Sometimes I do, but I don't know what they mean. Or I'll get different herbal remedies and I have no idea what they're actually for. Like it'll be like, oh, take marshmallow root, and it's like, hold on, let's Google marshmallow root and see what it does, because I don't know, but it always sort of ties into the ailments that the person is dealing with. So yeah, it's pretty neat.
And not to jump in here with questions, but just one quick one.
No, I love the questions actually, because it helps direct it. Please ask questions.
Okay. With this, is this something that you always naturally did? Were you always either hearing voices and seeing the remedies, the situations, the roots of things, or was it something that you developed? Like, was it in your game plan, or did it happen to you?
Well, I have always been able to see deeper into people. So if somebody's saying, I don't know, oh, I'm upset because I stubbed my toe, and I'm looking at them going, no, you're not, you're upset because you're grieving this. Like I've always been able to sort of see the layers. like deeper within people and sort of what is blocking them. I've had that ability for a very long time. It was actually super frustrating because I could always see beauty in people that had a whole bunch of gunk kind of over top of them, that sort of over top of this beauty within them. So it was, I assure you, it's a blessing and a curse. But it was probably 5-6 years ago with Leah Morrison. We were friends, and she's a medical medium. She's very good. And we would do it back and forth. And I would always get the information, but it's just like mediumship. I could do it when I tried, but it took time for it to be quick and for me to make out what it is that I was being shown. So like when you start as a medium, I remember one of the first symbols they showed me was a snake, and I was like, ugh, like, what's that? That's totally creepy. But then I came to learn that snake means transformation and change. So it's because I'll be shown, like, for example, cancer will show up looking a certain way. And it took a while to understand, okay, that's what cancer looks like, because it looks different in the type of cancer that it is. So definitely interpreting and figuring that out. And then the other thing that happens, and it's been happening recently, you did a reading for me and you were picking up on some health problems that I was going through. And it's turned out that it's my thyroid, but it's actually my hormones affecting my thyroid. So it's astounding how many people come for readings that have exactly those issues, or that have ADHD, or have autism, or have the type of things that my life experience has brought me to. So it's just how it works with me. I don't know. I understand something and then I can do it. Like, for example, there was a medium that I was following, and her guides gave her percentages. And I was like, ooh, that's fabulous. Because when you're doing like sort of an intuitive reading of this may or may not happen based on the choices that you make, her guides gave her percentages. So 70% chance this is going to happen, 30% chance this is going to happen. So I was like, hey guys, can we do that? Now I get percentages. So it basically has been working like that. Does that answer?
Yeah, no, it definitely does. That's
Perfect.
really fascinating. I like the percentages. I get that sometimes, not all the time.
I love them.
It's so helpful.
Well, because that's what everybody wants, right? Is they're like, so, but when? When is the thing? Who? How much? Who? What date and time? Great. If I could be prepared.
Right?
I don't want that. Right? I want that certainty, but
yeah. May 25th, 2022.
At 1:37 p.m. You will.
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice?
That day? Can you tell me about that day? Because that's my birthday.
Yeah. No way.
Yes. Yes, it is.
That's funny.
What do you know? No,
that's funny.
Yeah. Anyways,
can you see energy around people, like auras, and how it can be affected by their physical or emotional or spiritual health?
This might not be a popular answer, but I will answer it. I don't find auras helpful for me. So yes, I can, but I choose not to, because I don't personally find it to be a map that's helpful for me, because I don't need to see that an aura is out to see what the problem is in the body. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So yes, I can, but I kind of don't bother, because I don't need that tool to be able to see what's happening physically.
That's not the tool you use.
Correct. That's exactly the best way I can explain it. Yeah. And it's not that there's anything wrong with seeing auras. It's not the tool that works for me to be able to see where the ailment is. It basically goes straight to it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So from the like medical, like I know, say when somebody does an Akashic record reading, like there's certain permissions that they have to give. They have to ask very specific questions, like certain tools in connection to the spirit world require certain things of us as the person being read. Do you find that with medical mediumship, or does just stuff like somebody will just book around like a reading with kind of no expectation, or just hoping like to get some interesting information and then medical stuff comes through? Or do they really have to have that intent behind the medical stuff, because that can be really personal for some reason. If you're like, hey, you know, and if I'm not, if I'm caught off guard by it. Also understanding though that spirit knows what information to give, but
Right.
I also know
Right.
with some readings, like you have to have that specific intention behind what you're doing with certain practitioners. So I'm curious how that works for you.
No, I don't think I really need a specific intention. So it would be like somebody coming for a mediumship reading and they want to talk specifically to a specific person. And then that specific person kind of steps forward, right? But if they come in and say, I just want to know if anybody wants to say anything to me, then you kind of see a few people come forward and then you kind of try and weed through them. You know, okay, I've got this person, and then you go through sort of the descriptions. So it's kind of the same thing. I've certainly had people, you know, those the people that come for readings that aren't quite sure and they're kind of testing it, so they kind of don't really want to give you anything. So for the record, I don't like those. It's not that I can't do it, it's just not fun, right? So so I can scan, yes. I can sort of scan and get the information as I go. And, or they can say, okay, this is what's going on for me. I'm having stomach issues. I'm constipated. I'm having constant headaches. And then spirit just kind of guides me right into the stomach. And then I look at the stomach and then the lower intestines into the bowels and can share sort of what's happening there. And then they'll kind of move me into different places. Like, then it'll be, okay, you know, you're not drinking enough water and your neck's out. And so it kind of does become a full body thing. But with anything, mediumship, any level of reading, you need that energy exchange with the person that's sitting with you to help guide you. Because even for me, and I've been doing this for a little while, that I still doubt just about everything that comes out of my mouth. And if the person's just kind of sitting there, I'm like, oh my God, I suck. Right? So it just helps. It helps to have that energetic exchange.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I find when reading folks like that, I completely understand it, because I have such a critical mind that I question. I'm very much the same, and I question things that come out of my mouth. And I think that can be important because we're all humans and we have brains that are very
powerful. It keeps us humble.
So I think it helps us, yeah, exactly, to be like, okay, is this my brain coming through? Especially if you like know the person or, you know, have some context. It's like, okay, is this my brain or is this spirit? And being able to question, I think, is really valuable. But I agree that there has to be a level of energy into it. Otherwise, sometimes the testing is what blocks them from coming through. Because it's like, well, you don't buy what I'm selling, which is fine. You don't have to, but we're not gonna.
But you're also not helping me to sell this to you by. It feels to me almost like you hit a wall. Like they're just not open to the energy exchange. Absolutely.
And I think spirit responds to that. It's almost like they respect the human's boundaries of like, all right, you're not 100% sure how you feel about hearing everything. So like, we're not gonna, open the floodgates on you either. And so
right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Spirit wisdom.
Yeah. Fair. So Tania, what do you think with, you were mentioning a little bit about like layers of awareness for people, and that like, you kind of touched on this too, but like how medical mediumship is not always just rooted in a medical issue, and how there's like
absolutely
layers. Like I was saying the other day, by the evening, I had this, like, I could see it almost like layers within. And so it was neat that you brought this up earlier. Is physically, my human self was really good. Human self was life's good, things are going well. Spirit self was really good as well. Everything was happy and whatever, but there was this middle layer, like the Oreo cookie cream layer, that was sad. I had the sad cream layer in the middle. It wasn't happy, right? And I was like, what is that? Like, how does that fit? And so when you see those or experience, or how do you experience those layers when you connect with people?
So it's actually a topic that I talk about frequently. So I'm just asking them to step in a little bit closer so that they can help me articulate this, and I'm not going, So basically, for like how I see and understand it, is it comes down to perspective. So we can have, let's say, a stomach issue. Okay, so we can look at the stomach issue from the perspective of spiritual. It's because you're not being authentic to yourself. That is why you're having a stomach issue. Or we can look, and it's not necessarily about layers. To me, it's perspective is the better sort of word for it. It's about perspective. Or if somebody is big into healing energy, they're going to say, oh, that's your sacral chakra, and you know, the I am, and whatever. I don't need to spew off the sacral chakra. And then if we were to look at it from the perspective of the physical body, you're not having proper digestion and you need a probiotic and a prebiotic. I'm just making this up as I go. So it's not necessarily that something goes through the levels to the physical. More how they show me it is it depends on the perspective and where you, they're saying where you are in your level of consciousness and growth and ability to see and holistically bring all of the layers in together into one perspective as opposed to three. Thank you.
Totally. That resonates.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I just saw, where was it the other day? A conversation where somebody was talking about a 6-dimensional being versus a 3-dimensional being, right? We're 3D here in human form, and traditional medicine, Western medicine is very 3D medicine. And that is okay in a 3D sense, but a 6th-dimensional being would look at this 3D thing from the 6th-dimensional perspective of the whole picture, or the root, like you're saying, or like the origin of what it really is. It's not the 3D issue, the root
Absolutely.
is.
So here's a good example, and I'll just share of what was happening medically for me. So I've been like low energy, struggling like with like just feeling sluggish and achy and sore, and it's been going on for a very long time, progressively getting worse to the point that I was like off work for a week, feeling just awful. And they kept saying hormones, thyroid, iron, hormones, thyroid, iron, hormones, thyroid, iron. I'm like, okay. So I go to my medical doctor and I said, I am not well. I need you. And this is nothing against this medical doctor or Western medicine. So if I break a leg, I don't want to go to an energy healer or a naturopath, right? Perspective. So I go, he tests my thyroid, tests a bunch of things, and he goes, yep, you're fine because your levels are fine. And it's like, no, because there's more to this. Does each person actually fall within this chart that the medical community made up when and how, which then, God, I could just go on such a tangent about how that ties into consciousness and people being put into boxes and being expected to sort of pick one way of being or one thought, right? So I'm like, no, he's wrong. There's more here. Spirit was not giving it to me. I knew it was hormones, thyroid, iron, but I didn't know how to fix it. He wasn't helping me. So I find a naturopath that specializes in female hormones. And she explains to me that when you go into like an adrenal fatigue or you're in perimenopause and your hormones change, your hormones affect the way that your body absorbs your thyroid chemicals. So it's producing it fine. It's going to show up just fine in a test, but your body's not actually absorbing it. So I came out of there with progesterone and thyroid medication, and I'm slowly getting better. So that's an example of the layers and the perspective, right? So it's this tiny view of this tiny little box that very conscious 3 to 6 dimensional humans are still being expected to fit into, which is so much of what's crumbling in the consciousness right now. To, depending on the perspective of healing, like somebody could say, somebody that's just looking at it from a purely spiritual level would be, you're exhausted, you're depleting yourself. Or from an emotional level, you're depleting yourself because you're people pleasing and you're trying to do too much and you're coming from this mother wound or whatever. From a physical level, when it moves to different layers. Am I explaining this well? Am I making sense?
Yeah, I'm following.
Okay, good. Can you guys like nod or shake or something?
Oh yeah.
Okay, fabulous. Because I get going on a tangent and then I'm like, what did I just say? Did that make sense?
Yeah.
But
No.
yeah, so that's the best way I can explain sort of the layers and that I see. So someone, there's a lot of healers that are really into chakras and energy. They're going to see it from the perspective of chakras and energy and not necessarily see it from the physical body. And that's unfortunate because they're missing the perspective and the level on which that healing needs to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And often it's
sometimes there would be like multiple levels too.
absolutely.
Right? Yeah. So I
Yeah.
think that's really interesting.
I feel like what you're saying, oh, I thought I was muted. The dog was making lots of noise, so I muted myself. I feel like what you're saying is just such a great example, of I think how we have to advocate for ourselves. Us, we're very blessed to live in Canada where we have universal healthcare and all of those great things. And there are definite hurdles and barriers. And I think it comes back to, having some experience with a chronic illness that is very misunderstood and underrepresented and really forced, like, take birth control, do this, do that, da 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 da. And so many people with uteruses that experience this illness, it's like they're just brushed aside, or they're not heard, or they're like, oh, you're fine, you just have bad periods, sucks for you, sucks to be a girl.
That's exactly what was happening for me.
And
it's like reading.
And it's like, I live in my body every day, right?
Yeah.
And I think you're speaking so beautifully to just the idea of, like, trust your internal wisdom when something doesn't feel right. And if there's somebody sitting in front of you, they might be very smart, very educated, wonderful doctor, great, 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 but they don't live your experience day to day. And I think that just taking it a step further can, like, I was jotting notes as you were talking, because Spirit was saying, like, this is why our connection to ourselves is so important, because over so many years, we've just become so disconnected from what's happening internally, and we look
100%.
outward to technology. And those are great things,
100%.
right? If I get, in a car accident, grateful for technology and modern medicine and all of those things, as you were saying. And there's certain things that just doesn't necessarily paint the entire picture. And I think too, even your point of, oh, well, numbers and scales and things like that, we have to remember too that a lot of those ranges are based from a very small, white, often male sample size or, like, perspective, right? And so it doesn't embody, everybody's body is so different. We're all unique flowers. And so if I'm saying to somebody, like, I feel something is wrong, and they're saying, nope, sorry, numbers are fine, it's like, then try and search out somebody else, because there's alarm bells going off in your body. Take the steps to follow them as best you can.
Absolutely. And I don't want to do all the talking, but to me, it also ties into the connection with yourself. It ties into sort of, again, what's happening in consciousness is this breaking down of stopping listening to other people's opinions of you and taking it as truth. Because I have been feeling like crap for quite some time, and my doctor keeps telling me that it's nothing, get more sleep, maybe it's sleep apnea. And it's like, eventually I kind of had to go, like, no, you're wrong. You don't get to tell me who I am or what's going on for me. And that's what's so much needs to kind of change and break down. But Ginette, you talk about this all the time about more things crumbling. And what it is we're all sort of stepping into this, like, you can't paint us all with the same brush anymore, because we're all individuals. We have to step outside of the boxes that we're taught in society, etc. So to me, it all kind of ties into the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Can I ask you something?
Absolutely.
I'm wondering what your perspective is on the layers of anxiety.
Hmm.
Because I asked this because I feel like anxiety has so many layers, right? And so then we go to our doctor saying, I have anxiety disorder, and they're medicated. I'm not against medication at all. I just think it's highly overused. But anyway, so the thing about it is I feel like, and just working with clients, do you see anxiety that comes up? Because I mean, I see people talking about anxiety all the time, especially now, how you can then see the layers of like, is it an alarm bell for something? Is it a trigger and letting yourself know something that's around you? There's just so much more. And it's such a big question mark, right? And so have you gotten any like really neat downloads or explanations from spirit in the regards of the layers of anxiety? That's a massive question. I'm just curious.
Yes. I will do my best to answer it, because I find when I'm trying to explain these types of things, I try to explain it on 4 different levels as I'm explaining it. So please, if I lose you, bring me back. Not that I don't think you can take it in. I'm not sure I'm explaining it properly. So.
No, I know it's about the levels for sure.
So what they're prompting me to say right now is it's also about perspective. So sorry.
It's okay, we get it.
If anyone understands, it's us.
Because what they're showing, I'll just explain what they're saying, and then hopefully they keep bringing the information. So what they're trying to show is that you could go to the doctor and say that you have anxiety, okay? One perspective could be, okay, you need to medicate that. But the other perspective is that you're actually in an abusive relationship, and your whole entire being is screaming at you to get out, and you're not listening. So it's stirring up inside of you and causing this like jittery anxiety. That's what they're trying to show me, is that they just said often the cause is not what we think it is. So, but then I see anxiety in people that's caused by thyroid being out, or hormones, or ADHD. ADHD is the root cause of a lot of people's anxiety. OCD, a lot of those actually root in being not neurotypical. So it comes from a bunch of different places, and it would take me to sort of tune into an individual to be able to explain the layers. But what they're also saying, and what they're bringing me back to this instincts thing. So someone may, you guys need to be more clear. This is not helpful. So someone reacting, I'm going to close my eyes while I talk. Yeah. Someone reacting to a slight. They're bringing it slowly.
That's okay.
Somebody reacting to a slight. Somebody might say to them, you have anxiety, that's why you're acting that way. But the person, it's not coming properly, guys. You gotta help me. They're saying there's different layers of healing. So what somebody might regard as an anxiety disorder at this layer, when they step a little bit further, they realize that it was actually because they were going against themselves. When they step a little bit further, they realize that it was because they were abandoning themselves. When they step a little bit further, so it's the layers of their own healing and growth that the meaning of the anxiety becomes something different. That's what they were trying to get to me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's totally. Because I was feeling that too, is almost like the anxiety is the alarm bell, or is the like notification for the deeper look, the next level. So it's like almost like if you're feeling the anxiety, it's like not to treat the anxiety. It's okay, what do I need to listen to? Like what's going on, right? It's right. Like your ability for yourself to get yourself's attention, right?
Yes, yes. So what the example that they keep bringing me back to is a conversation that I had with a friend quite some time ago, where she was reacting to, this isn't necessarily anxiety, but I think it's going to show the point. She was reacting to something that was happening in her relationship. And she kept going to herself and going, oh, this is like, my mother wound. This is me reacting from this abandonment place. And that's why I'm getting so upset by this action that's happening outside of me. And 3 months later, she found out what was really going on. And she goes, oh my God, I mistook my instincts telling me that something was wrong as anxiety and something within myself that I needed to heal and step back to, when in fact, my instincts were actually just yelling at me that something was not right, and I kept shoving it aside. Well, of course, it's going to bubble back up, right? I think that's what you're getting at. Did that explain it? Okay.
Yeah.
Because that's the example that they first kept giving me to share, and I was like, but that doesn't make sense. How do I? So yeah, so the meaning of what we call something changes as we grow in consciousness.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
that. Or like I was talking to a gal at work, and we were talking about a person, and they were saying this person's dealing with grief, that's why they're having their problems, and I'm like, no, they have autism. And she's like, oh no, like I see this and and it's like, okay, because that's a perspective that you're at in your ability and depth to be able to see. So that's like, you say there's 3, 4, 5, 6 levels, and I'm not saying I'm better or anything. It just depends on the perspective that you're viewing what is happening at for the 3rd, 4th, 5th, or 6th layer in which you're actually seeing it. That's the best way I can explain it.
I love it. I think that's so valid. I know I can definitely agree with that if I look back at my own journeys of healing different things, and times maybe that I was spiritually bypassing something that was actually a very physical, visceral, emotional thing that needed to come out, right? And so I completely agree with how you're saying the bubbles show themselves as we heal. It may come up again and we're like, what? I dealt with this. It's like, well, you did on like the 1st floor, but now you're
exactly.
What's on the 2nd floor?
Yeah.
So I love that you're saying that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it interprets there. It interprets physically. It like in the spiritual, emotional, physical body. It interprets in levels of thought, which is what I was trying to explain earlier. It interprets into the layers that somebody can see in a situation with the underlying motivations underneath. And so it interprets in a whole bunch of different areas of essentially consciousness.
Mm-hmm. It's not linear.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I don't really think it's levels either, but I don't know how else to say it.
I know it's trying to give 3D constructs to something that's not 3D, but we have to explain it through 3D.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Trying to
exactly.
Language, 3D English language. It's like we could do it better in our heads to each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Amazing.
They just said, how do you explain something that you can't possibly comprehend?
Exactly. Yes. Okay, so that's fantastic. Do you guys have any other kind of questions in closing? I mean, I know we could pick your brain all day long, and we'll have to have you back to do this again. Definitely. We'll go to the 2nd floor next time. We'll all zip up on the elevator and explore Tania on the 2nd floor.
I think I just did the elevator kind of like this. we pushed all the buttons. We went up and down a few different times.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Lisa?
Okay, I was going to say that as like a reminder for anybody listening, that this is just the perfect way to describe that if you're explaining something to somebody or you're wanting to be heard, like you guys were talking about with your medical experiences, but even like with your partners or like friends or whatever, if it's not within the layer of consciousness in which they are leveled in, they're not going to hear it. You know, like they can hear it, but they don't hear it. They don't know it or feel it. And so it's okay. It doesn't mean you're wrong or you're crazy or that you don't know. It just means that they're not energy matching.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So a fabulous example of that is somebody on the first floor telling a third floor person what is happening to them. So the third floor person has to know themselves really well to go, thanks, first floor person, but you are incorrect about what's actually happening for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very
absolutely well said.
Yeah.
I feel like I talked the whole time.
But we
That was
wanted
the
you
point.
That was the point.
we wanted you to. Any closing thoughts or questions, Elyse?
No, I don't think so. I'm pondering lots of things, but they're not really solid thought right now. So,
There. Okay. Awesome. Well, I guess we'll leave it there. So, Tania, thank you again so much for joining us and sharing your expertise and your insights. I think it's a very beautiful thing considering the energies we're in, Mercury retrograde, the moon and lunar eclipse we had. It's intense. And so I love that we're leaving it on the note of like, notice which level you're communicating your own thoughts to self, your thoughts to others, maybe others trying to communicate to you. If we could just move around each other with more grace right now and a little bit more patience, it can keep things chill and not crazy. So anyways, we'll leave it at that. So to everyone watching, thank you so much for joining us. If you want to connect with Tania, you can find her at avalonspirit.com under the personal journey guides, the same area you can find the rest of us too. So we're all there and we will all be back again. So thank you so much for joining. Do subscribe, share, and hit that like button. That helps with the algorithms. And I also want to say too, to those of you that really want to blow your mind open and really beyond, like if you want to go first floor to, we're going to go sixth floor, you can join me next Thursday at Cosmic Consciousness, where we're going to talk about time glitches, and time constructs. So I'm going to do my best to use human language to explain something that is not linear, but it's going to be fantastic. So check that out, and we'll see you guys next week.